Good morning, guys. June 16th, Friday. Since it's a weekend day, I thought I would take it a little easy and probably talk conspiracy theories. I know that's what most of you want to hear. That's what most of you are about. I picked this different spot because I thought it was pretty cool. This is my kind of place, at least. All the patterns, designs, pipes. It's pretty crazy. You guys should appreciate the work I go through, but when we talk conspiracy theories, there's a whole lot of them. I was debating which ones to go over. Obviously, flat Earth, the moon hoax. There's quite a few. Illuminati, reptilians. I covered a tad. So I guess we'll start with the moon hoax. With the moon hoax, I don't know if you're aware, but there was at least one mission that was faked. There was at least one part of the mission that they accomplished that was not genuine. And whether or not that race was for the moon between Russia and America, I kind of think was the main point. But if we truly have went to the moon or go to the moon, because flat Earth, it questions a lot of these things, and I kind of want to bridge them together. But the moon, for the simple fact that they faked it, makes it less credible. Because, for instance, in the first Apollo 11, I think it was, moon mission, they claimed to be 3 days out, and they actually have footage showing the astronauts covering a window, canceling out all the light, and they show this footage of the window being blocked out and you seeing the actual stratosphere of the Earth and not really being in space, or like the long distance shot they were claiming to have been made while in space on this mission. If you ever look at future images or imagery that shows, 1970s footage of the moon, or the Earth, I'm sorry, you'll notice that they always appear real cut off and real abrupt as far as the global Earth. So it makes you question the credibility. That's my whole thing on the moon hoax. Now, the thing that it was faked, I mean, you can tell by light angles, you can tell by crop photos, by color balancing, you can tell by all these different things that photos have been cropped. I mean, I don't doubt it. The other thing that goes into question is when they show astronaut missions and they have them on the green screen. I mean, this is kind of flat Earth stuff, but for whatever reason they're faking all this bit of information. I don't get it, and I don't understand why. But in my opinion, it has a lot to do with this flat Earth concept. Other visuals that can be seen are astronauts in space, and you see bubbles as if they're underwater. How is that explained? Flat Earthers say that they're under a pool. I get a little deeper than that, and it's probably going to get crazy, because one thing you have to learn to admit, and I said it earlier, is you have to be fine with the answer not having an answer. And unfortunately, that's what we're given, is this option to choose, and if we choose so to believe in what these things are. And so as far as the moon hoax, there's a hoax of some sort. Now, was it a hoax in have we never gone to the moon? I mean, Japanese astronauts say that they're recording from the moon, or they had a live stream at some point from the moon. So I don't think the moon is an issue, but it does become questionable if there was other objects on the moon that were alien-like, and I think they would love for you to believe that. They would love for you to exist in that world where we are a randomosity, just random happenstance that occurred as far as life goes, and we just magically appeared out of just a big gamble and randomness and probability. Everything just synced up and collided perfectly. The stats I've heard, in order for life to have existed or to exist in the order that we exist in, as far as the molecules and atoms, and the percentages out there, like it's bigger than the lottery or something than that. It's like 1 million to 1. Or so, I mean, you got to consider that fact, that when you think about flat Earth and we go into flat Earth, besides all the facts that are out there, because a lot of people have facts and a lot of them contradict each other's facts, and you have to take into notion that there's a common factor being grasped by the individual. Like I was telling a friend last night that no matter what the topic, you always have to take in all the facts, as far as even common denominators, in my opinion. When you have common denominators that exist in people's minds, like they want to grab onto it either for an imaginary reason or because it's factual or because there's some sort of resonance that's going on in somebody, there's always something that has to get confronted on or talked about or thought about, and you have to just admit it if it's actually happening or not. Like, it's up to you. I lost my train of thought on that. I'm sorry, guys. So I know some of you probably get frustrated. I don't finish off points, but I think so fast and so much. I'm sorry. Like, I mean to get there. I really do. So with that being said, I mean, the flat earth, there's a lot of facts, and one of the biggest facts that I have a problem with is the point of perspective. Now, it's been offered, it's been given a lot in the flat earth debate, is that when ships sail, you don't see them go over the water, or like as far as a curve would go. You don't see them go over the horizon. But now one thing I can't explain is the sun and the moon, is that you do see them go over the horizon. But there are videos out there, let me clarify, there are videos out there that will say that the sun has a disappearing point, and it rises above the horizon, like those who are filming from the beaches or the oceans. There's a couple videos I've seen where there's like an invisible line versus the sun actually going below the horizon. Now, I think it's curious that the Egyptians labeled, our hour the same as Horus, or Horus and horizon, and all these words collide and they make one kind of concept happen in one. And another thing I have an issue with is the fact that we take Egyptians and everyone prior as primitive man versus any type of intelligent man, and all their technology that we see today that we can't mimic, but yet we still think we're above them. That to me does not make any sense. So those are some of the facts that I take into account. So one of my ways of taking in information is absorbing all the facts that everyone has to offer. As I absorb it and I listen without judgment, without critiquing, and I just listen. And it's not until I hear all the facts, or usually I know within myself when there's been enough facts regurgitated, that I can kind of decipher what's the pattern or what's going on, or in my opinion. Now, I could be thinking too highly of myself. Granted, I get it. But at the same time, nobody seems to ever offer the same side of insight that I give, and the same option or the same way of looking at things. And so when we talk about the flat earth, we're definitely seeing horizons. If you are familiar with what's in front of you, you've never seen a curve, right? Have you ever seen a curve besides the space photos that have been displayed to you? Have you ever seen a curve beside anything outside of your own eyes? Like through your eyes, have you ever seen a curve? It's always flat, no matter how far you go up, no matter how much you go. But yet the argument is that the earth is so big, and that round surface doesn't show up as round to us because we're so minuscule and so small. I don't believe it, just because for the fact that when have you ever seen water maintain itself on a ball? And again, these are all arguments like the size and gravity keep it all together. But yet, if you ever consider the facts, right, and we're talking about facts and information, Copernicus is the one who discovered, this is the Copernican model, the fact that we're geocentric, that everything is surrounding us heliocentric, where we're surrounded in the universe or the solar system, and we're surrounding the sun. Now, I don't doubt that, but with the universe, there's a balance, right? And if we're looking at atoms and we're comparing as above, so below, and we're looking at molecules, and what we know from a molecule is a proton and a neutron, and they encircle a center point. Now, that center point is like 0.01% of a mass, because it's 99.99% space in that molecule. So doesn't that kind of sound familiar? Like we're basically I think 10% or very small percent within space of actual matter and material, but yet the rest of it is space. And yet from our eyes, from what we view, we have a proton and a neutron, or I forget, I think that's the negative. I want to say it's neutral, but we have the sun and moon. It's circling us, right? We know that much for sure. We say we are circling the sun, but at the same time, we experience the sun going around us. Now, the other concept you can put into play is Polaris, the center star. Not only Polaris, but the astrology system, as far as, the 12 zodiacs and more than that. But as far as the actual, birth signs, that's the reason you're even like calculated under those birth signs, is because those are the paths that the sun travels. I mean, there's multiple more zodiacs out there, but we only know the story mostly to our birth month, because that's the month that sun passes through that zodiac sign. Now, I mean, this seems like common knowledge to me, but I know a lot of you may not be familiar with astrology or how far it goes. But one of the key concepts to remember also in this little side tangent is that the ancient man had a lot of mythology and a lot of talks and stories and tales. And in those stories, like when they talk about Zeus being an eagle and flying and inseminating with, I think Hera was one of them, or there's a few of them, but he somehow inseminated and implanted the baby on the hip, or somehow did something at the bottom of the river, or same for Moses being drifted along the river. Anytime you're usually hearing river referencing in mythology or tales, it's referring to the Milky Way, it's referring to the cosmic river, the river in our sky. Now, with that river, we also have zodiacs that match up to these myths and tales. And as far as the seven sisters, like Pleiades, Orion's belt being tied to Osiris, or Sirius being tied to Osiris, technically Venus, or I don't know, I'm mixing a whole lot of things together. But for the simple fact that these stars tell tales of our mythology, are stories that we've had for ages. I mean, we're talking the time of Christ, quote unquote, and before and prior to. So the reason I bring this up is because, and I'm glad I can stick to this mode of thought, but the zodiacs are still in the same placement. Like, we still see them. So like, if we're in the heliocentric model where we're flying through the space and we're going through the universe, you're telling me everything is staying exactly the same from what we can view as our ancestors view, like in our night sky? Polaris stays the central star and has been the central star. I mean, some will argue that I think it changed, or because of the Earth's tilt it will change, but I don't think so. I think these are fabricated stories, because obviously we're not going to be around long enough to know. We have to take the word of those who are scientists and who have done all the work, and who we have to take their word for it. And when all those scientists, the whole reason, now let me bring it back to this point, when all those scientists are all mystery school members, like Copernicus being a Freemason, Pythagoras, he proposed the concept, I think, of a global model. There was Christopher Columbus was a Freemason slash Rosicrucian, I think, or something along those lines, even being referenced in Assassin's Creed movie. I mean, at the end, the assassin, which is Aguilar, which is eagle, by the way. If you didn't know that, the movie shows the eagle flying around. Well, Aguilar is a link to the eagle, or Aquila, which is, Latin for the eagle. The eagle is representing, like the phoenix. The phoenix is representing rebirth, renewal. So there's a lot of signs in that movie alone. But long story short, is it's still the same. Everyone who's providing facts describing what our world that we live in is as part of a mystery school member, some of those facts start to get a little foggy and a little hazy for me, because when every single scientist or discoverer or whoever, anthropologist, is some form of mystery school member, whether it be Freemasonry, Rosicrucians, Order of the Golden Dawn, I mean, they're all linked. They're all one and the same, because if you figure out this tale, even Scientology, I mean, L. Ron Hubbard was roommates with Aleister Crowley's protege, who then became the grand chief of his Thelema movement. I mean, these are all facts that we're not really aware of unless you go out and search for it and find the connections. But L. Ron Hubbard, who just happened to be hobnobbing with Aleister Crowley, was on a big movement. He called himself the Beast, and he was in the early 1900s. He proposed to have channeled a spirit, and I can't remember the spirit's name, but while he was visiting the Great Pyramid, he channeled a spirit, and in that channeling, he supposedly described the Book of the Law. And in this Book of the Law became, do as thou wilt, or thou shalt be the whole of the law, or something to that nature, or that effect. And what it means basically is do what you please. Don't let anything restrict you. And my problem with that, though, is that it means even the bad. Like, if you want to go rape, go rape. If you want to go kill, go kill. Like, it goes to that extent. but it's also because it's your will. So you have to consider that aspect. So it wasn't like he was saying it's okay to go kill, but you do whatever you need to make you happy in this world, in this life, in this whatever. And that's my qualm with it, is there was no balance. The only balance was that it existed, and there's no opposing balance. And it's more towards the negative. People started directing it in the negative, started doing what they want, doing what they please. I'm gonna do whatever the hell I like. I ain't gonna let nobody restrict me. And that became the order, supposedly. But so it gets, again, to me, like, he calls himself the beast, because you have to know that the beast is the ego. The beast is that character, again, I was talking about yesterday. You have to, like, understand that concept, that the beast is the ego. I'm attempting to go along. I want to see if this lasts and what's supposed to stick. But if it sticks, then I know that you guys are supposed to hear all this. But so when we get to the flat earth, right, the Bible talks about the firmament. Sorry I tangent there, but there's a whole lot of tangents I can go on. The Bible talks about a firmament and basically being a bubble. We exist in a bubble. Now, there's other theories out there and philosophers who say that we're part of the anatomy, that we're existing within a body. There's the Hermetic 7 principles, but say we're in the mind of the dreamer, and the dreamer is actually dreaming this world, and we exist in it, and we are that dreamer, but we don't know it. And it's our story to return back to that understanding that we are part of that dreamer. We are the dreamer. Every part of you is a part of me, and every part of me is a part of you, and everything around us is a part of the dreamer, which you and I are, which we all collaborate in. And it kind of goes into my philosophy, but it's an easy way of looking at things. Trying to break it down in the layman's terms. Oh, there's a gecko. So, when we talk about the firmament, we're talking about the bubble. We're talking about, basically, in my opinion, a cell, right? If we're thinking as above, so below, and we go within our own body, and we look at molecularly, we have cells within our body that we don't even see, but they exist, and they exist as a collaboration of a whole. And if we go down to the atom is actually spinning around, again, the proton and the neutron. So to me, that's happening in our universe, that's happening in ourself, that's happening around us in our day that we see from day to night. It's nothing but the same fractal. It's called a fractal mathematically. In the 70s, there was an equation developed called the fractals. And in this equation, it would actually display patterns that would repeat itself within itself. So this pattern would constantly go, and this pattern would emerge bigger, and you could zoom in, and you've seen it on the internet, I'm sure, but it's just hard to describe, where you could zoom in and you just keep on zooming in, and it's the same pattern emerging, just keeps on coming, just keeps on coming, same pattern, but in one corner, in one form, in one different area. Like, it's still the same thing. Like, that's what we are. That's what Google Earth, Google Maps, down to us, down to our anatomy, down to our cell structure, down to, an infinity above. Like, it goes the same direction. We're nothing but living within something that is us, and something's living in us, and et cetera, et cetera. So you have to consider all these facts. Oh, I think I might have to go, guys. All right, let's see what happens. I have a cop here, or at least what I think may be a cop. He's driving by right now. It's a cool place, though. Okay, well, we'll leave it with that. I don't know. He's not coming. I'm going to get the heck out of here because I'm not all the way legal. Love you guys. Peace. We'll talk about this maybe. I'll finish it off tomorrow. Thank you.